let's get this party started. To Be King, Arc 1, Elemental, Shadow, and Fire series by Brantley A. Mason. Audio by Brantley A. Mason. Copyright 2025 by Your Loyal Journalist, LLC. Before you begin, I would like to thank you for joining me on this journey by offering a free ebook copy of The Journalist Quest. Click below for more options. Do not take revenge, my dear friends, but leave room for God's wrath, for it is written, "It is mine to avenge. I will repay," says the Lord. Romans 12:19, NIV. A Brief History of the Great War by Grandmaster Treus.
Thank you for humoring an aging man the privilege of giving you, the reader, a bit of understanding of this tragic war that has happened. Due to how we have handled this event, I would like to make this record for future scholars to have a better understanding of the events surrounding the end of the war. After winning the Wraith Wars, a civil war within the Darklands, the Dark Lords turned their hate and desire for power to other places. They were led to this by someone I had once considered a friend, a brother, and he led these zealot warriors to a war on the world. The Druids broke away from the war and established themselves as neutral, a false claim before then, beginning to play both sides in secret to sell their souls, their services, to do the quiet and dark deeds that the good-natured would not do, and the dark-natured could not accomplish. Thus, the Shadow League was born, increasing the escalation of the war to a height that no one could have predicted. The war almost stalled after lasting nearly a full season. The front line cuts through the continent, the Fire Realm and Docklands in the north, with the Nature Folk and Lightning provinces in the south, effectively cutting the continent in half, north and south. The Fire Realm had joined after the war had been waging for 3 moons on the side of the Dark Lords, under the false pretense of stability and duty to the world's faults. I was able to reach the king, and, after 2 moons and secret meetings, was able to convince him that he had joined the wrong side. In doing so, the scales of the war tipped towards the alliance of nations, and they were able to push the Wraiths and Dark Lord's forces back within the Darklands. This betrayal of the realm was not without cost, for the Dark Lords had sent a contingent to the realm for aid against the Water Imperial invasion from the Northern Sea. This army was then turned upon the realm's capital, a night most of the clans and realm now call the Purge. It was a terrifying ordeal to witness, and I will not go into detail other than that the royal family was sent to the winds and the realm's capital sacked. The king was lost. The Lightning Knights arrived too late and could only chase the enemy into the Mist Mountains. They continued their advance on the retreating army as the Alliance front lines broke through and pushed the enemy back from the south. Most of the enemy forces were dead or injured, and the rest of them barricaded themselves within Castle Doom, their capital. An infiltration team, commanded by myself, underwent the task of infiltrating and killing the remaining Dark Lords. Once the castle fell, the war itself was over, but the people were still dealing with the aftermath. The realm may never recover, though attempts are being put forth. The royal family is still in hiding, for fear of assassins from my brethren, Hopefully, my order of owls will resolve this before any harm comes to the royal family from my brethren assassins. But for now, the world is attempting to right itself from this tragic war that most fear has not ended, including myself. I hope these suspicions are wrong, but as I attempt to track down missing wraiths and rogue assassins of the Shadow League, I fear that we have only postponed this fight to a later date. Whenever that will be, I can only hope it is not within my lifetime. But with how long it takes us druids to age, my hopes may be outpaced in the end. May the shadows guide whoever is reading this, and allow them to understand more of Versirium, a broken world this war has left us in.
Chapter 1. I'm not going to do that, actually. There's a lot of editing for me to do later. Someone stopped by and I'm just checking on the cameras. Looks like he left. Good riddance. Alright, let's see here. So, yeah, that was my interpretation of Master Atreus for the foreseeable future. Let's see. So now we shall go into chapter 1. Now, will I remember all the numbers for the remainder of chapters? Probably not, but it's okay, because I don't number them. Makes it easier. So I would like to set that up. Okay. Alright, here goes the first one. I've done it already like 3 or 4 times. So. But I've edited it since then, so we'll see. And there goes my camera messing up again. Alright, here comes the blurbs. The Fire Within. 3 seasons after the Great War, the day it all began. Skipping down the street, the little boy tore off a piece of jerky and chewed it with a big smile on his face. As the sun descended steadily towards the west, the boy wished for a comfortable bed to sleep in until morning. The hard ground hadn't been too pleasant the previous night, and he hoped the men had chosen an inn that would accept them. He moved through the busy street, munching upon his treat, without drawing attention to himself in his plain clothes. As he had always thought everyone was nice, just like back at... Why is this sentence in here is what I want to know. As he had always thought everyone was nice, just like back at the castle, though his mother had always said there were mean people out there in the world. He would need to be nice to them when he met them. She was correct, he thought, as he waved to a man selling warm bread wearing a funny white hat. Though some people aren't nice, it was always better for you to smile and be kind to them. Even if you felt angry inside, it was better to be a good person. And his father would agree, if he had been there. Remembering one of the last conversations he had with the imposing man, "Your mother is right, son. If you treat others how you want to be treated, eventually they will treat you that way." The boy understood his father, but resented him for not actually doing what he had always said to do. The boy munched on his jerky, dispelling the sad thoughts as he turned the corner of the market. When returning from Central City, they typically brought dried meat or bread and cheese, but they were running low on funds, which is why his mom was asking his aunt for help. It had taken nearly 8 days to reach the city, and seemed all for naught to the boy. After leaving the same day they had arrived, he had come to the understanding that his aunt had not been pleasant. His mother had told him to stay with their small escort of guards in the spare room, as his mother and aunt spoke. The boy was unsure what his mother had spoken to his aunt about, but he knew it had to do with his father and the throne. But as the boy skipped across the cobblestones, waving at a smiling lady near a fruit stand, the boy thought it was none of his concern. All he knew was that his aunt had been rude to his mother, and he believed his aunt had tossed them out, though his mother denied this and said that she needed some space to think. The boy was getting used to the treatment these days. Even though he was never the one given the criticism, the adults always seemed to be singled out by others and called mean names and told to move along. In fact, such seemed to be the case as the little boy pulled up to the inn where he had last left his mother. The boy watched them for a moment and saw Nicodemus, the captain of the guard, talking with a serious expression. The man wore his red and black dragon armor and held his helm under one arm as he spoke with the innkeeper, who was almost yelling at this point. Beside the captain stood two Clan Ignus huntsmen, in their leather armor and robe-like clothing underneath. The boy glanced at the sign and could see the picture of a hissing dragon head, the symbol of a clan he was pretty sure didn't like Clan Ignus. But it was always too much for the boy to keep straight. He was only just learning from Gran about the clans, saying his father should have been the one to teach him, but it was now up to her to take the role. Gran suggested taking the clan dragons to the city, but the boy's mother was uncomfortable around them. The boy always loved flying on them. Dragons always mesmerized him with their power and strength. It made the boy think back to his father's regal, Freyas the Black, one of the most powerful dragons of this age. A fond memory, one of the few that the boy had regarding his father. The boy slowed his skip to a walk as he approached the alley next to the inn. He could see the three guards standing on the porch, still talking with the innkeeper where they had been attempting to stay the night. Words like, "You stoking Ignis aren't welcome here," met with, "But Her Majesty will pay you," were all the snippets the boy heard as he turned to the alley. Another memory of when he had walked in on his father and mother standing on their balcony smiling and swaying to a song playing in the distant city below. "Son," his father called, "make sure that you find a woman like your mother here, and you treat her respectfully. Not like a man respects a man, but how the sun treats the moon, with a delicate kiss of light and a warm embrace. And you make sure you protect her like a dragon protects its hoard. Protect her, your family, and those of yours. That is your first duty." As the boy stepped into the alley, the memory brought back other memories. Memories he wished he never had. Memories of the night his father had thrown his life away and left the boy to take up his place as the man of the house. And he would do it better than his father had, after throwing himself away when he... The boy stopped in his tracks. The light of the sun was low here, in the depths of the alley, the building too high for light to reach at this time of day. But as the boy's eyes had come into focus, adjusting to the light, he could make out two figures at the end of the alley, where it split into an intersection. Slowly, the boy stepped forward. He could just make out the figures now. His mother stood with her back to the building wall that intersected the alleys. A man in a blue coat and white hair was stepping closer to her. The boy could see the man whisper something, but couldn't hear what was said. His mother's eyes widened, and she almost spoke out, but the man clamped a hand over her mouth. A brief struggle took place. The man forced her against the wall. The muffled screams of his mother were lost within the alley, as the man covered her mouth with his hand and gripped her shoulder with the other. She thrashed for 2 breaths, kicking and attempting to punch the man in the blue coat. The man seemed to not even feel the weak attempt, and only clamped his hand tighter around her mouth, pushing her into the wall with his body. The boy had the sudden urge to run to his mother's aid, to hit the man, to strike him down, just like his father had said. But just as he did, he watched as 2 things happen within the same breath. First, his eyes met his mother's, and her thrashing seemed to slow a bit as she saw him there in the alley. He watched as her eyes registered him, widening even further, and with the man still trying to clamp her mouth shut, motioned her head and pointed at a stack of crates and bags of what looked like grain. The boy's thoughts, though, were to go back down the alley to get the guards. They were strong, powerful men. They would be able to manage this man and bring him to justice. Second, the shining glint of a small blade. The boy's eyes were drawn to the thing, as it seemed to form out of thin air, with mist and ice crackling the air as it formed an ice dagger in the assailant's hand. The almost translucent blade appeared in the man's opposite hand as he pulled the blade back, and then the man was ramming it into his mother's pinned body. The boy froze then, unable to move from the spot, as he heard a grunt from his mother, and then another, as the man rammed the blade into her side again. The boy watched as his mother seemed to grow limp in the man's hold, her eyes drooping and her arms falling. The man stumbled as his mother seemed to collapse then, and her weight falling onto him. He began to guide her to the ground, and the boy caught a glimpse of the man's eye. Not real features, as the shadows hid the man's face, but the blade in the man's right hand as he guided the boy's mother to the ground was enough to put the boy to action. With a sudden panic, the boy dove behind the crate and held his breath, hoping the man hadn't seen him. With how dark the alley was, the boy was surprised he had made out his mother. The shadows hid her assailant far too much for the boy to make out, other than the strange blue coat. After 2 heartbeats, the boy peered around the corner to see the man now leaning over her slumped form, whispering something, but the man didn't finish before the boy heard a roar of fury and whirled around. The old captain drew his black steel blade, tossing his helm aside in favor of gripping the long sword with both hands. Then, faster than the boy could track, the old captain was flying past him and towards his mother and the assailant. The man seemed to have been launched down the alley by something, like an arrow released from a bow. But when the boy turned to look at his mother's assailant, the man was nowhere to be seen. The captain reached the boy's mother and knelt quickly. After the captain said a few words, he burst to his feet, turned, and launched down the alleyway, hopefully after her assailant. The sound of the man's roar echoed as he chased after the blue-coat man. The 2 guards rushed to the boy's mother and bent to peer under her traveling cloak at where her assailant had most certainly stabbed her. The boy stepped out from behind the crates then, and hesitantly stepped forward as the men propped her up against the wall and began asking her questions.
"What happened, your majesty?
Who was he, my lady?
What did he want?
Did he say anything?" But the boy's mother only looked to him, a faint smile upon her lips as she looked him over, as if glad he wasn't hurt, but pain within her eyes. Come here, my little fire," she called in a whisper, her voice strained as she spoke. The boy hurried over, the guards parting to make room. The boy could feel the tears building in his eyes as he reached her and then embraced her. "I'm sorry, Mother." The boy wept into her shoulder. One of her hands stroked his shaking back, like she had when he had burnt his hands practicing elemancy. I couldn't. Shh, it's okay. It isn't your fault, my fire, she assured him as he clung to her. It is not your fault. The guards spoke in low voices. Then the echo of footsteps down the alley as one raced away, while the other guard bent down at his mother's injured side as the boy hugged her from the other side, just barely able to make out the guard through his tears. I wanted to help, the boy cried. I know. His mother's breathing became labored as she affirmed. You are so brave in trying, but I'm glad that you listened to me and weren't hurt. It was good that you didn't do it. I would have been so sad if you had been hurt, too. The boy's body shook as he felt his mother's hand begin to slow. Your Majesty, the guard checking her side began. Your Majesty, please save your strength. Kemp has gone for a healer. Stay with us. By fire? She asked in a tired voice. Yes, Mother. Promise me that you will have Nicodemus train you like he trained your father? The boy held onto his mother tighter, closing his eyes through the tears. Can you do that for me? He only nodded his head before another fit of shaking and tears washed over him. There, she cooed. I'm going to be with your father now. I'll tell him of the strong man you are becoming. I need you to be strong for me. No, stay here, the boy pleaded, pulling on her dress. Don't leave me. I'm sorry, my fire. But it's my time. He felt her hand, weak as it was, grab him and push him back, so they were eye to eye. You remember your promise? A slow nod was all he could do for a moment. Composing himself before speaking, he wiped a tear from his cheek with a sniff. Have old man Nicodemus train me like father. Behind them came the sound of the guard scraping around and then walking back. Then the sudden eruption of orange light sprung up. The boy looked up to see the man had found a stick of some sort and had set it ablaze, holding it with one and dropping the opposite hand that had a glowing red ruby ring on it. Thankfully, the light illuminated the space, and the boy turned his teary eyes back to his mother, who held a weak smile. But to the boy, her smile was the source of the light. New tears formed. "That's my boy." She brushed a strand of his hair from his face before catching a tear from his cheek. Her skin was so soft, but cold now. The boy could see her skin growing white as the light from the soldier's now lit torch illuminated the alley. The boy reached up and held her hand as she spoke her last words. "I love you, my little fire." As he watched the light fade from her eyes, muffled silence was all the boy could hear. Her smile on her face as she left him alone. He gently let her limp hand down to her lap. Seeing the blood upon her hand, and now his for the first time, the red made him stop. As he stared at the crimson upon his hands, his eyes bloodshot, no longer able to shed any tears, as he had shed all he could have. The emptiness was all he knew. Numbness, as he stared at the red upon his hands. There were sounds of heavy footfalls, and the sudden scrape of metal on rock as the captain appeared at the corner of the boy's vision. The older man leaned down, saying nothing as he tried meeting her eyes. After a moment, the man cursed and stood up. The boy didn't know if it was to him or someone else. There was a shout that almost brought the boy back, but then his mind seemed to dismiss this as he sunk deeper into that abyss. In that moment, the boy did not care. Stuck within this state, the boy sat there, as the guard spoke in angered tones, staring into nothingness, until a tiny spark within him lit. Deep within, he could feel the empty void within him being filled with that heat. The flames within his heart steadily beat in their rhythm of fire, a slow beat, like that of a distant water dripping into a still pond. The beat slowly gaining in volume as the fire seemed to grow, consuming all within its wake, like a glutton beast on a rampage, not caring for anything. The flames swallowed anything within its wake.
"Let the fire rage,"
a voice bellowed as the feeling overwhelmed him. A power so overwhelming it would take him until the end of all days to crawl back to the gates of reality. The rhythm reaching a crescendo, then the fire seemed to wait, as if waiting for its cue, but none came. "How did I get here?" the boy thought as he let the world fade away, the body of his beloved mother at his feet. "How can I go back?" But he knew his answer. He knew the answer as if it were his own name, like the blood running through his veins, like the blood-stained hands before him. There is no going back. No going back to simpler times, when he had watched his mother smiling as his sister laughed, spinning in one of her new, pretty dresses. He would never see his father's proud smile as the man praised him on his progression in elemency. Times of blissful ignorance, where all he had wanted to do was be with the ones he loved. Then there was a calling sound, like that of a crow from above towards the gray sky. When the boy looked up, he saw a large black bird, maybe the size of a house cat. It was a raven. The bird was looking down on the scene with something the boy could identify as sadness. How he felt in that moment. Then the bird blinked, cocked its head, and sat upon its perch straighter, like some majestic stonework of pride, of power. A strong young man. The words echoed in his mind. He needed to become stronger. If he wanted to protect the ones he loved, he needed power, and not some small little fire that he could only summon and then move around. He needed the raw power of an elementalist. To do that, he would need to move past that horrible night of screams, smoke, and blood, past the broken throne, past that horrible war. He needed to become the blue flame, the strongest fire to burn anything that wished to harm him or those he cared about. If he wanted to do that, if he wanted to become the strongest, he would need to be more than he was, more than some poor, weak, lost, helpless little. And that's it for chapter 1 for now. Catch you in the next one.